I wanted to bring up a bit about the work history thing because I worked in restaurants. For those who know, we did an interview on that. Silas interviewed me, and I talked about how that's a high turnover industry. And one of the jobs here, my first job actually, I left after 9 months and I got some flack for that because I was told your first job out of school should be 1, maybe 2 years. And then after that, if you move around a little more, it's fine because you have a few places you've been in longer, so you have stuff to fall back on. But if you move around a lot, especially early on, that's bad because then people worry. It gives one of two impressions. It's either you jump around from place to place because you're not happy or you're never satisfied, or you keep getting kicked out of places because you just can't make it. And I was like, I talked about this cook from Harvard who, education wise, looked really good. He had degrees from Harvard, Columbia, and Culinary Institute of America, where I went, but he had something like 10 jobs in 2 years or something. And like I said, I got flack for leaving a place after 9 months. But if you've had like a few months here, a few months here, a few months there, right out of school, I mean, most reasonable people shouldn't look at that and think, yeah, this guy will be a good hire. Because again, it's either he keeps jumping around or he keeps getting fired from each place. Either way, it's not a good sign. Again, if you have a few places that you're at a year or two or more, and then you have like a few places you're at briefly, that's a little more reasonable because maybe you were in a few bad places, but you've shown you can commit. But if your whole resume is just jumping around, I mean, I don't think any reasonable boss is going to look at that and want to hire you.
And again, this depends on where you're hiring. If you're hiring in New York City, which is where Stephen is talking about, where someone's like, I want somebody to be in here for multiple years, you've worked at places where people have been there for years, right?
Yeah,
But then now,
yeah.
if you're running maybe a seasonal restaurant in Aspen and you're just there for the season, you're hiring somebody for 3 months. If you look at their history and they've had that whole thing, then they go, oh, and they haven't been fired, and there's no negative things in their history where they just left. You can be, okay, this person is able to join a new team, be part of that team, and work with that team, and leave without having like any. So somebody might be actually looking for people who have the previous work history of jumping around. If you're looking for that sort of thing, that's a different sort of thing that you're going to be kind of thinking about in that kind of situation. So that's the thing. Just because X is valuable to Y person doesn't mean it's valuable to every person in any sort of way when you're talking about Z. That's kind of what we're talking about here. We're just saying specifically if somebody is talking about I want to be valuable for somebody, I'm looking for somebody for a long-term monogamous relationship, most men do consider sexual history. We're not saying it's right, even though we kind of agree with it. We're not saying it's not like unfair to certain. Actually, I don't think it's unfair because people chose to do this. Is the thing. People chose to do this. It's so frustrating because like if you look at somebody's history and somebody's work history, like you say, and oh, they've been in this restaurant burnt down, or there was this restaurant, a pandemic came and shut it down, or there was this restaurant, the restaurant was closed because the owner was stealing money under the books, and that was
Yeah.
somebody with 3 different jobs in 3 months. And like, okay, you got to treat that in a different way than somebody who just went to one job that was an excellent job. It's a well-known place. Everybody who's been working there has been working for multiple years. The person leaves. The person goes to another place, it's also good, similar good. The person leaves. Then the person just tries like some random place. Why is this person here? The person leaves. You look at that history and like it's the same 3 jobs in a month, but you got to look at one of them differently than the other ones because one of the person had those things happen to them without them really understanding. So yes, of course, if somebody's been assaulted, if somebody has had different kind of childhood issues and they're coming up with those, and you can see they've improved, then you got to look at that history in a different way. But the history is still going to count. Come on.
Yeah, because I could make the opposite point too. I was thinking of Les Bollier, where I did my externship. It's now closed, unfortunately, but like that they had some of the best retention I've seen in a restaurant. Like my chef was there 10 years. The sous chef left there, I think, 6 years. There were cooks who were there 5 or 6 years. And it's funny because I used to laugh at that and think like, oh, these people will never leave. But in retrospect, it's like, no, that's good. If people are in places that long, that means those are good places to work. And when they left, it wasn't because they were unhappy. It was usually like, oh, I worked all the stations and I wanted a promotion, but they felt I didn't have enough experience, so it's time to move on or something like that. Or like with my chef, well, he had the highest position, so it's like you can't go anywhere up from there. So it's just either run another place or open your own. But like
Mhm.
that's good. Like there's a reason people are staying there that long. And it's like it's the same thing too. Like if people have been in these relationships for a while, like if you have a few serious relationships, that's good. It means like, okay, this person can try and work things out. This person is patient. They'll give things a chance. And then if you have a few flings or a few things that didn't work out, fine, we can be understanding. But if it's just this string of in and out constantly, it's like I wouldn't date. I mean, I'm in a happy relationship now, let's be clear, but like I wouldn't date a woman who had a new boyfriend every week, because it's the same principle. It's either like, um, you're jumping from boyfriend to boyfriend looking for something better, or you just.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Pendants. 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 Pendants.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.